So let's get started. Let's get started in a seat this morning. We'll take a few minutes to really settle into our time on the mat. So you can sit in any comfortable position and then just raise the hands out to the side. Flip the palms up and back down and back up. And bring the palms either up or down onto your thighs or knees. Bring the eyes to close if they aren't already, and bring the crown of the head toward the ceiling. Just tune into that breath as it comes in and out of the body. And then see if there's any place where you can let your body soften a little bit more. For me, in the seated position, it's always my belly that I seem to be holding in. But here, see if you can let it out or let softness enter any other part of your body. And then just let the breath be whatever it will be. And we'll focus on different parts of the body, seeing if we can just relax a little to begin class. So let's start at the feet. Gently wiggle the toes. And then let them come back to stillness. And just notice the ankles, the calves, and the thighs. Let them all be heavy as they support you and you're rooted on your mat. And then notice the sits bones in connection with the earth. Notice the hands wherever they are on the thighs or knees. And just gently wiggle the fingers a little bit and bring them back to stillness. Let the hands be heavy, the fingertips be heavy. Bring awareness to the belly and to the rib cage and to the heart center. Notice the arms by your sides. Bring awareness to the shoulders. Let them drop away from the ears just a little bit more. And then bring attention to the throat. Wiggle the jaw back and forth. And then bring it to stillness. Bring the tongue away from the roof of the mouth. Unfurrow between the eyebrows in that third eye. And then finally to the crown of the head. Just noticing if you are able to soften. Notice if there's any place where you're holding on or where you're feeling sensation, and just let any of that be. Knowing that the way that your body is coming to the mat today is perfect. And just keep the eyes closed and drop the chin down toward the chest. And release the arms up and overhead. And then you can keep the eyes closed or open as you look up. Cactus, the arms draw the shoulder blades together. And then chin down toward the chest, arms straighten as they go above. And then head rises, arms come to cactus, fingertips nice and wide, shoulder blades together. And just take one more round. And when you're done with that round, bring the hands together at heart center. Once again, bow the head and flutter the eyes, gently open, taking in the light around you. And then we'll find our way to our back. So knees can be bent, come onto your back, and then take the feet as wide as the mat. Sweep the arms out to the side, either in a T or in a cactus. Take a moment to tuck the shoulder blades under the body. And then just windshield wiper the legs gently from side to side. Move really slowly so you can feel the sensation of each muscle in your body, in your legs. And the next time your legs come over to the right, keep them there. Just allowing gravity to pull the thighs and the knees toward the earth. And send the gaze over the left shoulder. And then bring the gaze and the knees back to center. And send the knees over to the left, gaze over to the right. Release any tension through the shoulder blades, through the legs, just allowing gravity to do the work. And bring the gaze and legs back to center. Walk the feet into hips with distance apart here. So, and close enough that you can almost touch the heels with your fingertips. And we'll take one round of bridge. Bring the arms down by the sides, press into the feet as you tuck the pelvis, lower back, middle back, and upper back. Come up off the mat. Holding here, arms can stay by the side or you can float them up and overhead. Press into the feet. Keep breathing. And then vertebrae by vertebrae, slowly roll back down to the mat. Arms come back down by the sides. And then draw the right knee into the chest. Holding it here, send the left leg long toward the bottom of the mat. Just take a few point and flex through the toes. Let the top half of the body be nice and heavy. And then rebend that left leg. Bring the sole of the foot back to the mat and cross the right ankle over the left thigh, coming into figure 4. So stay right here, or you can draw that figure 4 in toward the chest by clasping behind the thigh or in front of the shin. And if you draw it into you, Use your elbow to gently press on the right thigh, just keeping that leg nice and open. One more breath here. And then if you've clasped the figure four, bring it back to the mat, uncross the legs, and then draw the left knee in toward the chest. Send the right leg long toward the bottom of the mat. Take a few point and flex, just opening up the back of the leg. And then draw the right knee back up to face the ceiling, sole of the foot on the mat, and find your figure four on this side. And either keeping it on the mat or drawing it in. And take one more breath. Release the right foot back to the mat. Uncross the legs. And then draw both knees in toward the armpits. So taking this kind of supine child's pose here. So knees are wide in toward the armpits. And then you can stay right here, or you can begin to flex the feet and find happy baby. Reach for the outer edges of the feet. And wherever you are, you can either stay in stillness or maybe give yourself a little rock from side to side. Eventually coming back to stillness. And then release the feet back to the mat. Roll over to one side and find yourself back in a seated position. Bring the soles of the feet together this time. And just play around here. Even if you normally have your feet in really close to you, try it out in front of you. Or if you normally have them far away, see if you can bring them in a little bit. Just play with the difference here to see what feels especially resonant with you this morning. And then sit up nice and tall, maybe pull some flesh out of the way. Hands come to the ankles. And we'll just take a few rounds of seated cat-cow here. As you inhale, press the heart and belly forward. Elbows can slightly bend. Find that arch in the spine. And then as you exhale, really round in, chin can drop down toward the chest. Inhale. And exhale. And take one more round. And then rise back up with a straight spine. And just flutter the legs a little bit. A little butterfly wing movement here. And over the next couple of rounds of breath, we'll meet in a tabletop position. So you can draw those knees back together, swing the feet to one side, find yourself on your hands and knees. And just take one round of cat-cow. Inhale to drop the belly, lift the gaze. Exhale to round the spine, drop the crown of the head. And come back to neutral. And begin to really press into the shoelace part of your foot, the top of your foot, as you hover the knees up off the mat. So the knees are hovering just an inch or so. Press into the palms, press into the top of your feet. Belly is engaged. One more breath. And then lower it back down. Tuck the toes. And we'll do that same movement. Press into all 10 toes. Press into the palms. Hover the knees up off the mat. Holding here. And then lower it back down. Untuck the toes and send that right leg long behind you. Begin to bend the knee toward the right elbow. And then send it back. And knee toward right elbow. Release it long behind you and take one more round at your own pace. Right leg is long and straight. And then just step it through as you bend the knee. Step the foot through in between the hands. Find yourself in a low supported lunge. And come to your fingertips. And just let your hips be heavy down toward the mat. Allowing gravity to help you open up here. On the next inhale, rise up, arms come up and overhead. Once again, allowing those hips to be heavy down toward the mat. So see if you can sink in just a little bit more. And then frame the right foot, plant the left palm, right arm floats up to the sky. And lower it down and bring the right foot back into your tabletop pose. Come back onto your palms. And once again, press into the top of your foot, onto that shoelace part of your foot. Hover the knees up off the mat. And then lower the knees down, tuck the toes, press into all 10 toes to once again, hover the knees. And lower the knees down to the mat, untuck the toes, and send that left leg long behind you. Hip points are pointed down toward the mat. Leg is straight and strong, and then bend the left knee toward the left elbow. And back. And take 2 more, moving nice and slow. And send that left leg long behind you. Bend the knee toward the chest. Eventually it'll come in between the hands. Once again, find that low supported lunge. Let the hips be heavy. And just notice what it feels like when you're able to let go a little bit. On the next inhale, rise up, arms come up and overhead, and then sink back in. Reframe the left foot, plant the right palm, left arm floats up to the sky. And then lower the left hand down, step back into your tabletop pose, just rock the hips from side to side. And we'll stay on the left side here, once again, sending that left leg long behind you. So it should be coming straight out of your hip. And then send it out to the side with that straight leg. See if you can keep your weight distributed over the center of the body. And then sweep it back to tap over the right leg beside the mat. And you can look over your right shoulder. So let's do that again. We'll sweep it out and back and over to the side. See if you can keep the rest of your body nice and steady. And then sweep it back, tap the mat behind you. And one more time. Tap, and then send the left leg long behind you and step the left foot to the outside of the left hand. You can scoot the right leg back a little bit and then come up on your fingertips to start. And if you'd like to, you can come down to your palms again or down to your forearms, finding this supported lizard here. So left knee is pointing up toward the sky. See if you can hug it in a little bit closer toward that upper arm. And we'll stay here for a couple more rounds of breath. If you'd like to try, you can tuck your toes and raise that right knee just to see the difference in sensation. And if you have come up on those toes, bring the right knee back to the mat. And everybody come back to your palms. And just step it back into your tabletop pose. Rock the hips from side to side. And then we'll take that same move on the other side. So send that right leg long behind you. I'll show you from a different angle this time. And then sweep the right leg out to the side. And then sweep it behind. Gaze goes over your left shoulder as the right toes tap. And then sweep it back out to the side. And back and around. And take one more round. And then send that right leg long behind you once again. And just step it to the outside of the right hand. You can scoot the left knee back a little bit. And come up on the fingertips to start. And then if you'd like to come back to your palms or down to your forearms, find the pose that works for you. Hug in that right knee toward the right arm. So if you find, if you're down on your forearms, that you're kind of dumping in, press into the forearms, and if that still doesn't work, just come back up to your palms. Making sure that you're staying open and lifted through the heart. And if you'd like to tuck those left toes, bringing the left knee off the mat, feel free to do that. One more breath. And then bring that left knee back to the mat. Everyone come back to their palms. And step it back into tabletop pose. Rock the hips from side to side. And tuck the toes. First downward facing dog. So you can take any movement here that you want to. Pedal it out or just stay in stillness. And if you've done a move on one side, make sure that you mirror it on the other. And over the next breath, come back to stillness, back to center. And inhale forward, plank pose. Press into the palms. And then release it back, downward facing dog. Release it forward into plank pose. And back into downward facing dog. And then step, hop, or float your way to the top of the mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Sweep the arms out, up and overhead. Palms come to touch, gaze goes up. Exhale, hands at heart center. Inhale the arms out and up. And hinge at the hips as you fold forward, plant the hands, step it back into plank pose. Optional vinyasa here, it's always optional. You can do your choice. I'm gonna do knees, chest, chin, keeping my hips nice and high before I scoot forward into baby cobra. And back into downward facing dog. We'll do 2 more rounds. Step, hop, or float your way to the top. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Sweep the arms out and up. Exhale, hands through heart center. Inhale it out and up. Hinge at the hips. Find yourself down in plank pose. Vinyasa or not. Meeting back in downward facing dog. One more time. Find yourself at the top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Sweep the arms overhead and hands through heart center. Arms out and up and hinge at the hips. Step it back, plank pose. Moving through your vinyasa. And back to downward facing dog. Take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. One more time. Press into the palms. And then inhale the right leg back up behind you. Exhale to step it in between the hands. Find that low lunge first. Left leg is straight and strong. And then rise up into your high lunge. Readjust in any way that you need to and rebend through that right leg. From here, hinge at the hips so that you are finding this lightning bolt pose. And then sweep the arms behind you. Press into that right foot to find your stability. Woo. And then sweep the arms forward. Rise back up into your high lunge. And open it up into warrior two. So right foot is in front. Bend through that right knee and find yourself centered over your hips. Gaze goes over the right fingertips. Just holding here. Sweep it back forward into high lunge. Once again, hinge at the hips. Arms go out in front of you. And sweep the arms behind. Sweep it back forward. And rise up into your high lunge. Just one breath here. And then lower it down, frame the right foot. Plant the left palm, right arm floats up to the sky. Reframe that foot. And step it back, downward facing dog. Inhale the left leg back up behind you. And exhale to step it through in between the hands. Find that low lunge first. And then rise up, high lunge. And make sure, if you're feeling unstable, you can always take one foot further out to the side so your stance is a little wider. And then hinge at the hips, lightning bolt pose, and sweep the arms behind. Sweep it back forward. Rise up into your high lunge, and then open up warrior two. Left knee is nice and bent. Right toes face the long side of the mat. Gaze over those left fingertips. And then sweep it back forward, high lunge. Hinge at the hips. Sweep the arms back. And forward. And rise up just for a breath. And then reframe that left foot, plant the right palm, left arm floats up to the sky. Frame that left foot, step it back, downward facing dog. And then lower the knees wide, toes together, child's pose. Reconnect with your breath. And then press into the palms, tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Inhale the right leg back up behind you. Bend the knee to open the hip. And see if you can drop that left heel a little closer to the mat. You can take some knee circles or ankle circles, or stay in stillness, but press into the palms. And then release that right leg long behind you. Once again, step it through in between the hands. Rise up to high lunge. And then send all 10 toes toward the long side of your mat. So finding yourself in this wide-legged stance here. Bring the hands to the hips as you hinge at the hips, folding forward. And you can bring the fingertips down to the mat. Press into the fingertips, get a nice long back. And if you'd like to, you can flip the hands so that the fingertips face your heels, and then begin to walk them under you. Find a place where you can feel a stretch in the legs. Keep a nice long back and find some stillness. Let the head hang heavy. And then bring the fingertips back under the shoulders if they aren't already. And begin to walk the hands back toward the front of the mat. Find yourself in a low lunge. And step it back into plank pose. Optional vinyasa. Meeting back in downward facing dog. Inhale the left leg back behind you and bend the knee to open the hip. See if you can send the right heel closer to the mat and then take some knee circles or ankle circles in that left leg. Or stillness like I'm doing. And then re-extend the left leg long behind you and step it through in between the hands. Low lunge, coming straight up into crescent lunge or high lunge. And send all 10 toes toward the long side of your mat. I'm gonna face you. And once again, bringing the hands to the hips, hinge at the hips as you fold forward. Fingertips come underneath the shoulders. So press into the fingertips. And then just begin to bend both knees and straighten. I'll show you this from the side too. So you'll bend, hips come low, and straighten. So take 2 more of those. And then end with both legs straight, fingertips under the shoulders. And begin to bend the left knee as the right leg straightens. And you can walk your fingers over toward that left foot. And then just begin to walk your hands from side to side, bending one knee and straightening the other. Eventually coming back to center, straightening both legs. Walk your hands back toward the top of the mat. Left leg is forward. Rise up into high lunge. And then reframe the left foot. Find your twist here. And step it back into plank pose, taking a vinyasa of your choice. Once you find yourself in downward facing dog, step, hop, or float your way to the top of the mat. Find your fingertips on the mat, so bend your knees as much as you need to do that. And then straighten your knees any amount. So for me, it's a minuscule amount, but it means that I can really engage the back of the legs and find that stretch. And then release the knees, bending a little bit more, and round the spine to rise all the way up. Sweep the arms up and overhead, and sink down into chair pose. Nice and slow. Take a look at your toes, make sure that you can see them beyond your knees. If not, put a little weight in the heels, sit back a little bit more, and then tuck that tailbone under. And then straighten the legs to rise up. Take the feet a little bit wider apart, almost as wide as your mat. And then sink into a wide-legged chair pose. Let's bring the hands to heart center for a moment. Give the arms a little break. I'll face you for this. I begin to keep that left leg bent as the right leg sweeps back behind you and taps sort of the other side of your mat. So I'm feeling this in my outer left glute, in my outer hip, and then bring it back, sit back into that wide-legged chair pose. Move to the other side, rooting to that right foot as the left leg taps behind. And then back to chair. So just move from side to side. And moving slow here really lets you feel a lot of the sensation, of course. And then it really helps to keep this stability. So if you want to speed it up a little bit, just to see what that feels like, go for it. And then take one more to each side. Coming back to that wide-legged chair pose. Release the arms up overhead. And then fold forward, straighten the legs. Fingertips come to the mat. Take a breath here. In through the nose, out through the mouth. One more. And then round through the spine to rise up. Arms come up and overhead. Bring the heels in, toes out. Feet are as wide as the mat. So toes are at the edges of the mat, heels in. And sink down halfway. So knees over that big toe. And rise back up. And sink down nice and slow. Keep that tailbone tucked. And rise back up. Take 3 more. When you're done with your round, no rush. Legs come back straight. Bring the hands to heart center. And this time we're going to sink all the way down into a Malasana. So I'm going to bring my feet in a little bit closer. And then I'm going to sink down. And in this Malasana, use your elbows to keep your knees wide, hands at heart center, and just close your eyes here. We're going to be here for several rounds of breath. Let's do a little body scan again. Starting with the toes, just wiggle the toes on the mat and then bring them back to stillness. And let the feet be heavy on the mat. Feel the calves and the shins, the knees, the thighs and hamstrings, the hips for sure. And let all of that be heavy. Let gravity pull you toward the center of the earth. Let the belly be free. Let the heart be open. Palms pressed together. Feel the heat that's radiating between your palms. Gently draw the shoulder blades just slightly together. Shoulders away from the ears. Rock the jaw back and forth. Unfurrow that third eye and draw the crown of the head up toward the ceiling. Flutter the eyes open and come to sit on your mat. Draw the knees gently together and give yourself a nice big hug, tucking that forehead or chin toward the knees. And then unravel. Let the left leg drop out to the side as the right leg comes out in front of you. Inhale the arms up overhead. So the left foot is to the inside of the right thigh. Lift up out of the fingertips and then gently fold forward as far as you can with a flat back. And then let the fingertips drop wherever they will. Flex through the right toes. And then use the breath to settle in just a little bit more. Drop the chin toward the chest, round the spine, drag the fingertips back in until you are back up to seated. And then bring the left knee back to face the ceiling and bend through the right knee. Once again, give yourself a big hug. Drop the forehead or chin toward the knees. And rise back up. This time, the right knee flops out to the side. Left leg goes long in front of you. Inhale the arms up and overhead, really reaching out through the fingertips. And then hinge, hinge, hinge at the hips. Fingertips land wherever they will. Left toes are flexed. And soften in. Drop the chin toward the chest, round the spine to rise back up. Spine is nice and tall. And then bring the knees back up to center. Just for a moment, sit up nice and tall. And then sweep the legs to the side. Find yourself in tabletop. And then tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Take tiny steps toward the top of the mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Sweep the arms out, up and overhead, and bend the knees, come into chair pose. We'll stay here for 3 rounds of breath. Use the glutes, tuck the tailbone. And then forward fold, step it back. We'll skip a vinyasa, send it back to downward facing dog. Inhale the right leg back behind you, and we'll set up for pigeon pose here. So begin to bend the knee in toward the nose, and then send the knee to the right wrist, ankle toward the left wrist. And you can scoot those left toes back, eventually untucking the toes, and rise up on your fingertips. So maybe someday your leg will be parallel to the top of the mat, but it's not necessary. You can certainly have it at an angle. I do. Look over that left shoulder. Make sure that your leg is coming straight out of your hip. And then let your hips settle toward the mat. And if you'd like to, you can come down to your palms or down to your forearms. Make sure that you find a place that you can stay and settle. Using any props that you need to. You can even fold your mat under your right glute and hip a little bit. One more breath wherever you are. And then we'll all meet back on our fingertips. Shine that heart forward. Back to the palms. Tuck the left toes and sweep the right leg back behind you, taking any movement that you want to. Meeting back in downward facing dog. Step, hop, or float your way to the top of the mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Sweep the arms out, up and overhead. Gaze can follow. Last chair pose. Bend the knees, tuck the tailbone. And then hinge at the hips. Step it back to plank pose. This will be the last option for vinyasa. And we'll meet in downward facing dog. Inhale, the left leg back behind you. Draw the knee in toward the nose. And then find yourself in pigeon on this side. Left knee toward left wrist. Really flex through the left toes. Scoot the right toes back. And then come up onto the fingertips. So again, you can fold that mat under the hip or use any props. And then if you'd like to come down to your forearms, feel free to do that. Figure 4 on your back is always an option in lieu of pigeon. And take one more breath here. And come back up onto the fingertips. Proudly shine your heart forward. And then down on your palms, tuck your right toes. Rinse out that left side. We'll meet back in downward facing dog just one more time. And then inhale the right leg back behind you. Step it to the outside of the right hand. And step your left foot to the outside of your left hand. So find yourself in Ardha Malasana here. And then step the right foot back and the left foot back. Find yourself in plank. And then bring the left foot to the outside of the left hand and the right foot to the outside of the right hand. And from here, come up onto your fingertips. Send the arms out in front of you and rise all the way up. Gaze goes up. And then hands come back through heart center. As slowly as you can, sink all the way down. Eventually coming down onto the mat. And bring the feet, soles of the feet to the mat and lower yourself down. Draw the feet in close enough that you can almost tickle them with your fingertips. Arms long by your side. Press into the feet as you rise up into bridge pose. Arms can come up and overhead if you like. Press into the feet. And then slowly roll down. And take the feet as wide as the mat. Rock the knees over toward the left. Arms can sweep out wherever you like them. And if you want to adjust so that you can hook the left ankle on top of the right thigh, that can feel really nice. Wherever you are, gaze over the right shoulder. If you've hooked a foot, unhook it. Bring it all back to center. And then knees drop toward the right, gaze over toward the left, hooking the right ankle on top of the right thigh if that's calling to you. Take one more breath here. And then unhook the foot. Bring it all back to center. And draw the knees in toward the chest. Give yourself a little rock from side to side. Maybe even take some knee circles one way and then the other. And if there's any other pose or shape that's calling to you, please feel free to take that now. Maybe you want to take a happy baby or just put your legs up in the air. And then whenever you're ready, send the legs along toward the bottom of the mat. And send the arms out wide with palms face up. Just ever so gently drawing the shoulder blades under you so that you can shine the heart upward. Bring the eyes to close and let the breath be what it will be. Root in toward the center of the earth. You can begin to bring some attention back to your breath, taking any movement that you need, moving slowly and intentionally, eventually moving into fetus, and then into a seated position. And we moved slowly today. We moved with our breath and tuned into the earth. And my intention is to offer you a slowing down and an offering of grace toward yourself. That you don't have to constantly push and rush, that you are doing enough even when you are moving slowly, even when you are focusing only on one thing. You are enough. So with that, I hope you take this grace off the mat and out into the world. Namaste.